Tom Mulcair is on the line. Tom, we were asking people about a half an hour, 45 minutes ago, about the whole Anthony Housefather situation.
Right.
I'm curious for your take on this.
Well, I was so shocked when I learned about it over the weekend. And, there's a detail about it. Anthony was busy retweeting Mr. Trudeau's greetings for Rosh Hashanah, Shana Tova, and then right after he finds out that he's being dumped. And he didn't find out about that, of course, before the caucus meeting of last week. They only told people after. And I just find, one, that's unseemly in terms of behavior for somebody who has been an incredible loyal soldier. And I remember when Mr. Trudeau was running against me in 2015, he really made a point of saying, it's terrible, the concentration of power, and MPs aren't allowed to express the will of the people that they represent. Well, guess what? This is exactly what Anthony Housefather did. He expressed the strong will of the people that he was representing. They were opposed to Bill C-13 because they knew what it could represent in terms of loss of rights for the English-speaking community of Quebec. And lo and behold, behind everybody's back, in the middle of a long week, a holiday weekend, this sneak attack on Anthony Housefather. I still can't believe it. He's just such a fine MP and a very good person, and I was shocked and appalled. And I guess, nothing should shock me because I've been in and around politics for so long, but this one sincerely caught me off guard. I can't believe that Trudeau and his henchmen pulled off a stunt like this.
We got a text saying that basically it makes him shine even more, and it tarnishes Trudeau. I'm wondering beyond. So it's a $16,000 a year job. Is being a parliamentary secretary sort of like a badge of honor? Is there what goes along with that position?
Sure, because there is a big hierarchy in Ottawa, and given the fact that Mr. Trudeau really hasn't paid much regard to the English-speaking community of Quebec. We all thought, for example, that Anna Gainey was a shoo-in for cabinet at the shuffle this summer, and lo and behold, despite the fact that Mark Garneau was gone, and we have Mark Miller, I guess, theoretically, Lametti was gone, so who was there to talk for and on behalf of the English-speaking community? Basically no one. I was holding out hope that if Anna Gainey, because she was a rookie, didn't get it, that maybe Housefather could be in and represent a strong voice. Trudeau was, that type of strong character. He doesn't mind, putting up with a little bit of opposition, people who don't have to agree with every single thing that he says. But I guess I was really wrong about that.
Speaking of Anna Gainey, I don't know if you happened to hear her this morning on with Andrew.
No, I wasn't able to catch her.
Okay, so outside of the niceties about your first day, you got an office, all that kind of stuff, he did ask her, let's say, I'll let you hear the question, then you can tell me what you think about her answer.
If you had have been there when they were voting for Bill C-13, how would you have voted?
I don't know how I would have voted in C-13. I was quite preoccupied with running my campaign at that point. I will always stand up for the minority language community across the country, not only the one in our riding. And so I would have had to take a very close look at the implications to our rights and to our community in that legislation, and made a decision at that time.
Well, there's your political answer, but the part about I was busy running my campaign, I don't know where that came from. What'd you think?
MP.
No, you were simply asking her whether or not she would have voted for it, and she didn't answer the question. And it was a pretty simple question. It's not as if she hasn't had time since then, because believe it or not, her campaign's over. She's had plenty of time to figure out what she would have done and look at it and read it. And so it's a non-answer that answers a lot, about whether or not she's actually going to stand up on these issues or just pay lip service to them. I know which one I think is the case.
Mm-hmm. Me too, and she's my MP. I'm disappointed. I find myself feeling disappointed.
I think a lot of people are disappointed.
Shall we move on to another topic? Did we say enough about that one? We're going to be speaking to Robert.
Can I just ask, since we can finish with this topic, are we done with Anthony Housefather here? He'll sit as a Liberal MP. When we asked for comment on this, Tom, he said, well, I'll have to refer you to the PMO. So what happens from here?
Well, I guess he's being beyond prudent at this stage because he likes politics and he would love to stay on as a Liberal candidate. And I guess, once you start getting demoted, there's going to be vultures circling around him to try to get his riding. So he's going to just, hunker down and get past this storm. But I think that the person who has the most to be ashamed of here is Justin Trudeau for having gone along with this. Just, if the people around you are telling you, no, this guy's got to be punished because he dared say something different than you, I think it's time for Trudeau to move along.
Ooh. And I will just say, we heard from a lot of his constituents today, Housefather's constituents, that is, and they are rallying around him. I think if anything, if an election were tomorrow, he would win with flying colors, no questions asked. So we're going to be speaking with Robert Fife of the Globe and Mail coming up at 5:35 today about this situation, what happened in Parliament yesterday. Sort of shocking announcement, right, of India being accused of being implicated in this killing of a Sikh leader here in Canada. again, the reaction, we ousted a top diplomat here. They have in turn ousted a diplomat. What's the fallout going to be from this point on? How worried do we need to be, Tom?
Speaking of fallout, when there's a nuclear explosion, one of the things that they notice is that it brings in a massive amount of air. It just moves everything. And what the Liberals did by holding on to that news, because guess what? Trudeau didn't find out about that yesterday morning. He's known about it for some time. But he threw it out there like a bomb yesterday afternoon, and he sucked all the oxygen out of the opposition parties, especially Pierre Poilievre's Conservative Party. He used one of the biggest tools that he has in his toolbox to throw this thing out there. And today he was, of course, trying to soften it, backpedaling a bit. But he had accomplished exactly what he had set out to accomplish yesterday, which is to cause shock and awe and dominate the news cycle for 24 hours. So big high five all around in the Prime Minister's office. Katie Telford and the crew making that call and saying, okay, let's hold on to this and explode it on the day that we come back for Parliament. They weren't going to give any oxygen to Pierre Poilievre. That's enough of that. He's 15% up in the poll. They're going to start fighting back, which is what this is an indication of. With regard to India's actual reaction and whether or not it's true, one of the things that Poilievre was pushing for today is, okay, this reminds me of what happened a year ago. You were in China. You were in Bali, Indonesia. You were with the Chinese president, and your staff was putting out that you were giving him what for because of Chinese government interference in Canadian elections. Then when we asked you questions about it, crickets, you wouldn't answer. So same thing here. You say that you've got this information, you better start coming clean with Canadians and saying what this is about, because this is a massive diaspora community. They're very worried. There are aspects to this that could play out here, and it's not the type of thing that you want. So you'd better be clear. If you have indications to that effect, you have enough evidence, start putting it on the table, because the Indian government is denying it flatly. And so obviously they weren't going to admit it. We understand that. But if you do have something that's more concrete, you better start sharing it with the Canadian people so that we can calm things down, not just between Canada-India relationships, but internally here in Canada between communities.
But Tom, what about our allies here? You think if you're going to make an announcement, this big of an announcement, you want to be able to say that, you've talked to our allies, to the U.S., for example, and they've corroborated what you believe to have happened here. This is not part of that announcement.
Crickets from the tiniest micro announcement out of the White House saying, "Oh, tut tut," Canada says this happened. Nothing from the Brits, for example, and they would have normally been, you would have thought, quite concerned about this sort of behavior. So it shows to me that some of those countries are more worried about their relationship with what has become an economic giant in India than looking at what that could possibly mean for their own diaspora community. So I do think it's a bit of a concern, but I also think that it shows that they were sitting on this thing tightly. They didn't want it to get out simply because they wanted to have the surprise. And that's why it's going to be fun for you to talk to Bob Fife, of course, because over the weekend on Background, the Liberals were spinning the fact that it was because it was about to come out in the Globe and Mail that Mr. Trudeau had to come out with it yesterday. But I don't think that that's the order of things. It's not the Globe and Mail's fault that Trudeau came out with this yesterday afternoon. It's because Trudeau knew that he would clobber every other piece of news out there with such a big event and a big announcement.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It's a distraction tactic and very self-serving,
exactly.
And also staying ahead of it. Now, I'm curious what you think about the fact that Jagmeet Singh is kind of declining. He's just not entering this. He's sort of refusing to say where he stands on the issue.
Well, he did make one statement today that went quite far. In front of the cameras today, he said that we should give consideration to simply ending our diplomatic relations with India.
Okay, that's new.
I think, that was a big announcement, and it was picked up. And I think that goes extremely far. I'm not sure that there are going to be a lot of Canadians that agree with that. We have to get an answer. And if we have evidence that the Indian government was indeed behind this, then there has to be very strong diplomatic consequences, no fooling around. But again, do we have that? Do we have that literal, in this case, literally smoking gun? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
So, Tom, before we get out of here, I just want to ask you real quickly. We saw Canada's top 5 grocery store executives show up yesterday for, I guess, a photo op to talk to the government about, I don't know what. The big word coming out, by the way, is not lowering prices. It's stabilizing prices. That's how the government's now stamping this. Thank you very much. What did you think of what you heard? Is anything likely to come of this?
Well, put it together with the inflation going up notch by notch. We were back down to 2.8, and now we're back up to 4. So I'll put that together with another number. Last week, on September 15th, we saw that the Conservatives were 15 points ahead of the Liberals. The Liberals, between now and Christmas, they want to have a different narrative. So they will have narrowed the gap with the Conservatives because they'll be finally working and doing something to react, where they've all been asleep for 2.5 months. And the other thing that they'll have done is, because the grocery chains will do whatever they want in talking about supply chain issues, they're going to start stabilizing prices. So once you stabilize prices in the grocery store, and you have a Bank of Canada that one would hope uses its head and doesn't increase interest rates, because that would just be a disaster, then there's one piece left, which is the carbon tax. And Trudeau, of course, will say, well, it's part of our fight against climate change, but it's been proven by the parliamentary budget officer that it's a tax. It's not something where you get a rebate check back that will cover the whole thing, contrary to what the Liberals have been claiming. In the maritime provinces, in particular, most people heat with home heating oil. They're going to get clobbered. You can just imagine a couple on a fixed income, pensioners, with, $80 a week more in food costs, and all of a sudden they can't put oil to heat their house. This is a huge political problem. About a year ago, Trudeau would be able to count on winning almost all of the seats in the Maritimes. Today, I don't think he'd win one. So this carbon tax thing ain't going away. The next 17-cent increase will be kicking in, and it will also apply in Quebec. The other ones don't apply in Quebec because of our cap and trade deal with California, believe it or not. But this next one will, and believe me, Poiliev, and they're wailing away on the Bloc Québécois on this thing, and it is starting to hurt the Bloc. So stay tuned. We'll see whether or not Trudeau backs off on that one.
Tom Mulcair, he is back tomorrow morning with Andrew Carter at 7:40. He'll be back with us on Thursday afternoon. Tom, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Take care.